Plants are shutting down, workers are being left behind, and giants like Tesla, Ford, Coca-Cola, and General Motors are channeling billions into Canada rather than the US. If the core of American industry is shifting north, are we on the edge of an economic collapse? 1. Tesla was once the golden child of American innovation, a company that symbolized the country's leap into the future of clean energy and technology. From electric cars to massive battery factories, people believed Tesla would keep America at the forefront of the 21st century. But quietly, and without much fanfare, the company has been shifting billions of dollars of investment across the northern border into Canada. Ontario has become the new heart of Tesla's expansion, and the numbers are staggering.
The west end of Toronto, this one Tesla location alone reported selling more than 1,200 vehicles on January 11th, totaling more than $4 million.
In just the past 2 years, Tesla has poured more than $1 billion into Canadian operations. Ontario alone has hired more engineers for Tesla than the entire state of California, once the company's stronghold. For Canada, this is more than jobs. It's proof that their policies work. The Canadian government offered Tesla cheaper clean energy, priority access to rare resources, and an approval process that takes months instead of years. That's the kind of foundation a fast-moving tech company needs. Meanwhile, in the US, Tesla has been battling problems that no slogan can fix. The American power grid is unstable, electricity costs are climbing, and getting a battery plant approved can take 5 years. Every delay means falling behind in a race where speed is everything. Canada, by contrast, rolled out the red carpet, providing a stable environment where Tesla could grow without constant roadblocks. The bigger picture is not just about Tesla's cars, but about America's role in the future of technology. If Tesla, the crown jewel of green innovation, starts planting its roots in Canada, then what will follow? Losing Tesla isn't about one company leaving. It's about an entire ecosystem of talent, suppliers, and innovation shifting away. America risks losing not only jobs, but its claim as a global tech leader. 2. Coca-Cola.
We're a portfolio of huge global brands and, of course, including the iconic Coca-Cola. Actually, the business is a profoundly local business from an operational point of view. The drinks in the U.S.
For generations, Coca-Cola has been more than just a drink. It has been the taste of summer barbecues, childhood memories, and the symbol of American life. Yet today, this most American of brands is quietly relocating key parts of its production to Canada. Without any big announcements, packaging plants have appeared in Ontario, and aluminum supply contracts have been signed in Quebec. Before long, the familiar red and white can begin carrying the small but telling words, "Made in Canada." The reasons are rooted in economics. U.S. tariffs on aluminum and rising packaging costs have made it nearly impossible for Coca-Cola to sustain its operations at home without significant losses. Canada, on the other hand, offered cheaper aluminum, smoother supply chains, and government incentives that reduced production costs. For Coca-Cola, moving operations north was less about abandoning America and more about survival in a harsh business environment. The change has not gone unnoticed by workers. One former employee in Atlanta, who spent over 2 decades at a Coca-Cola plant, described how shifts that once employed 300 people have been reduced to a fraction of that. Machinery upgrades stopped coming, orders slowed down, and workers were told it was just restructuring. But behind the scenes, the reality was clear. Jobs and operations were quietly shifting to Canada. For Americans, the symbolism cuts deep. Coca-Cola has always been marketed as part of the national identity, something uniquely tied to homegrown pride. If even this cultural icon cannot find it viable to remain in the U.S., what does that say about the state of American manufacturing? It's more than just losing jobs. It's the unsettling feeling that even the most American things can slip away without warning, leaving communities weaker and traditions hollowed out. 3. General Motors.
General Motors Canada is in Calgary, sharing the company's plans to rev up its presence in our country. It comes on the heels of a meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney about the ongoing...
General Motors has always been a cornerstone of American industry. For decades, families in Detroit, Flint, and other factory towns built their lives around GM plants. Owning a GM car wasn't just transportation, it was pride in America's ability to build. But in recent years, GM has been pouring billions into Canadian factories instead. Ontario and Quebec are becoming the new home of GM's electric vehicle and battery production. Quietly, the heartbeat of this automotive giant is shifting north. Over the past 5 years, GM has invested more than $2.6 billion in Canadian operations. Battery plants in Quebec and electric motor facilities in Ontario show that this isn't a side project. It's a redirection of the company's future. The U.S. has become a less attractive place to expand, with strikes costing GM nearly $1 billion in lost productivity in 2024 and approval processes dragging on for years. Canada offered stability, government, training support, and guarantees of job security for a decade. For U.S. communities, the effects are devastating. Neighborhoods once alive with factory workers are growing quiet. A retired teacher in Flint, whose father spent 34 years at GM, described her city as slowly fading. Restaurants have closed, schools are shrinking, and once thriving neighborhoods are overgrown with weeds. The factory jobs that built middle-class families are vanishing, leaving behind empty streets and broken promises. 4. Campbell Soup. From pantry staple to imported tradition. For many Americans, Campbell Soup isn't just food, it's comfort. It's the red and white can that has been sitting in kitchen cupboards for generations, ready to be opened after a long day. But quietly, this symbol of home is being produced somewhere else. More and more Campbell packaging and operations are shifting to Ontario, while factories in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey cut production and suspend shifts. On the surface, it looks like business, but beneath it, it feels like part of American tradition slipping away.
Understand exactly what it means. It's 25% without exceptions or exemptions, and that's all countries, no matter where it comes from, all countries. If made in
The main reason behind this shift lies in the rising costs of aluminum in the United States. A 25% tariff on Canadian aluminum, coupled with limited domestic supply, added nearly $90 million to Campbell's costs in just one quarter. For a company that depends on aluminum cans for nearly all its products, that kind of expense was unsustainable. Canada, with cheaper electricity, subsidies, and an easier business environment, quickly became the better choice. For Campbell, the decision wasn't about abandoning America, it was about survival. But every decision has consequences, and for small communities in the U.S., the impact is massive. A technician in New Jersey who spent 16 years printing soup can labels described watching production numbers fall by half. When the cans moved north, farms that supplied vegetables, trucking companies that transported goods, and local diners that stocked cheap soup all began to feel the strain. What looks like a small shift in packaging is actually a chain reaction pulling jobs and livelihoods apart. The saddest part is the symbolism. When an American family picks up a Campbell soup can labeled Product of Canada, it may not change the taste, but it changes the feeling. It's a reminder that even the most familiar pieces of American life can be uprooted and replanted elsewhere, leaving a gap no meal can really fill. 5. Alcoa, the silent backbone of industry, melting away.
We want to negotiate a fair contract for the people so they can go back to work and decently have a good living in their community. Yes.
Most people don't think about aluminum, but it's everywhere. From soda cans and car frames to airplanes and skyscraper windows. For more than a century, Alcoa has been at the heart of American industry, quietly powering daily life. But recently, this industrial giant has been moving its core operations north into Quebec. The Texas smelter has scaled back, night shifts are disappearing, and production is gradually being replaced by facilities across the border. It's a quiet shift, but one with enormous consequences. The reason for Alcoa's move comes down to one word: electricity. Aluminum smelting is incredibly energy intensive, and in the U.S., energy costs are almost double what they are in Canada. On top of that, American plants face high maintenance costs, heavy taxes, and strict environmental hurdles. In contrast, Quebec struck a deal with Alcoa to provide 2,100 megawatts of cheap electricity until 2040, enough power to run a small country. Faced with that choice, the numbers pushed Alcoa out of America. For workers, the change feels like the ground giving way beneath their feet. A man who spent 30 years at the Texas smelter said he never thought he'd have to find another job. Yet today he works part-time at a repair shop while aluminum is shipped in from Quebec. It's still Alcoa, still aluminum, but the address is different. And that difference means fewer jobs, fewer benefits, and weaker communities in the U.S. If America can't produce enough of its own aluminum, it becomes reliant on imports for everything from cars to packaging. Losing Alcoa's presence isn't just about losing a company, it's about weakening the backbone of domestic industry. And once a backbone is gone, rebuilding it is far harder than most people realize. 6. Ford, the American truck born in Ontario.
On Canada is a tax on Americans, and it needs to end. We're going to keep making the case that we're better off working together, but as Canadians.
For decades, Ford has been the ultimate symbol of American industry. The F-150 wasn't just a truck, it was the image of hard work, family pride, and the spirit of the American highway. But in 2024, Ford announced something few expected: a $2.3 billion investment in Oakville, Ontario. This single project outpaced Ford's combined investment in 5 U.S. states that same year, signaling a dramatic shift. The Super Duty F-Series, once proudly built in America, would now roll off assembly lines just across the border. The reasons for the move are clear. In the U.S., Ford faced rising labor costs, tense union negotiations, and unstable energy prices. Approval processes for new EV projects have dragged on since 2022, with no end in sight. Canada offered a stark contrast. Ontario approved the Oakville project in just 10 months, provided $500 million in subsidies, and supplied 90% renewable energy to power the plant. For a company under pressure to adapt quickly to the EV future, the choice was almost inevitable. But for American towns built around Ford, the effects were devastating. Communities that thrived on factory jobs are now stuck in limbo. A restaurant owner near one U.S. plant reported losing 70% of his revenue as workers disappeared. Families who believed Ford would always be there are now searching for new opportunities. It isn't just about jobs, it's about identity. The truck that was once built Ford tough in America is now assembled in a place where most customers have never even driven one on U.S. soil. 7. Walmart. Consumption engine testing AI abroad.
Next Wednesday, well, somebody will be, because I'm going to be in San Diego. I'm going to be out there with a beach chair and trying to avoid the sun, actually. But there will be great.
Walmart has always been more than a store. For rural communities and city neighborhoods alike, it has been the place where Americans shopped for everything from groceries to clothes. But in recent years, Walmart has shifted a crucial part of its future away from the United States. Instead of expanding distribution centers at home, it has suspended projects and moved its new AI-powered supply chain hub to Toronto. That decision shows just how much Canada has become the testing ground for the future of retail. In less than 2 years, Walmart hired more than 400 Canadian engineers and data scientists to work on logistics algorithms and automation projects. At the same time, more than 200 similar positions in the U.S. were cut. While stores remain open across America, the real backbone, the technology that will determine how goods move, when shelves are stocked, and how fast deliveries arrive, is increasingly being built beyond the border. That shift represents more than jobs. It is a transfer of technological power. The U.S. hasn't made this move easy to resist. Walmart's AI projects at home have been slowed down by strict privacy regulations, ongoing disputes about data security, and the skyrocketing cost of technical labor in Silicon Valley. By contrast, Canada welcomed Walmart with favorable policies, tax incentives, and a deep pool of skilled yet more affordable tech workers. For a company competing in the age of speed and precision, Canada's offer was simply more attractive. But the risks for American consumers are serious. When algorithms that decide supply chains are developed abroad, the U.S. loses direct control over one of its most critical engines of consumption. What happens if delays, disputes, or conflicts affect these operations? Walmart may still be the face of American shopping, but increasingly, the brains of its system are being coded somewhere else. 8. Pepsi. Following rival Coca-Cola, North.
Plastic bottles. This comes after President Trump announced a 25% tariff on foreign aluminum. Coca-Cola expects the tariffs will not radically change its packaging operations, but it will...
For decades, the rivalry between Coca-Cola and Pepsi defined more than just the soda market. It was a contest of American identity, with both brands representing global recognition and homegrown pride. But just like Coca-Cola, Pepsi has been quietly shifting parts of its production to Canada. Ontario and Alberta have become hubs for Pepsi's packaging operations, while American plants are running at reduced capacity or switching to semi-automatic systems with fewer workers. The reasons echo what drove Coca-Cola away: U.S. tariffs on aluminum, high electricity prices, rising insurance costs, and constant labor disputes pushed Pepsi into a corner. Producing a single can of soda in the U.S. has become significantly more expensive than in Canada. North of the border, governments stepped in with cheaper energy, lower production costs, and a promise of long-term stability. For Pepsi, the choice was not about abandoning its roots, it was about survival in a highly competitive industry where even a few cents per can make or break profitability. The consequences, however, are devastating for many U.S. towns. Entire communities that once depended on Pepsi bottling plants are facing closures. Workers who spent decades on the production lines are left without jobs, while local businesses that thrived on supplying or servicing Pepsi facilities are struggling. What once was a source of steady employment and pride now leaves behind shuttered buildings and empty warehouses. The broader question is about competitiveness. If even Pepsi, one of the most recognizable brands in the world, cannot afford to make its product in the U.S., what does that say about the country's industrial environment? A soda can may seem small, but the symbolism is huge. When Pepsi follows Coca-Cola north, it's not just a shift in production. It's another piece of America's manufacturing identity quietly slipping away. 9. Intel and NVIDIA, brain drain to Vancouver.
To be willing to put on these secondary sanctions. I was at the G7 meeting in Canada with President Trump, and the Europeans kept talking.
When people think of Silicon Valley, they think of companies like Intel and NVIDIA, giants that have defined the modern digital age. From processors in laptops to the chips that power artificial intelligence, these companies are the beating heart of global technology. Yet in 2024, both Intel and NVIDIA announced new AI development labs not in California but in Vancouver, Canada. For many, this was a shocking sign that America's dominance in tech innovation is no longer guaranteed. The appeal of Canada was simple but powerful. Through the Global Talent Stream program, Canada allows AI engineers and researchers to get work permits in just 10 to 20 days. In the U.S., the same process can take up to a year, with no guarantee of approval. At a time when innovation moves at lightning speed, waiting months for talent is not an option. By moving labs to Vancouver, Intel and NVIDIA could hire quickly, scale their teams, and stay ahead in the global race for AI breakthroughs. For American engineers, the shift feels like a missed opportunity. While jobs in the U.S. remain frozen or cut back, Canada is welcoming hundreds of new hires, from senior chip architects to software developers. The innovation cycle, where ideas are born, tested, and then commercialized, is slowly moving out of the U.S. Every lab that relocates north is another step in draining America's intellectual edge. 10. Archer Daniels, Midland and Cargill, America's breadbasket, outsourced. For more than a century, the United States has been known as the world's breadbasket. Crops like soybeans, corn, and wheat once poured out of American ports to feed people across the globe. At the center of this system stood Archer Daniels Midland, ADM, and Cargill, two giants that managed everything from grain storage to global exports. But today, those same companies are gradually shifting their operations north into Canada, leaving the U.S. to watch as its dominance in food exports quietly slips away.
To impose tariffs, 25% on Mexico and Canada tomorrow. This could slow Canada's canola.
The turning point has been global trust. Canada has emerged as the top soybean supplier to the European Union, surpassing the U.S. markets like Europe and Japan see Canada as more reliable because of its stricter rules on pesticides, antibiotics, and genetically modified crops. By comparison, American exports have faced growing skepticism, with shipments rejected or delayed because they don't meet international standards. ADM even shifted its primary export hub from Texas to Vancouver, citing smoother logistics and higher compliance with global regulations. For farmers in the U.S., this change has been devastating. Many are being forced to lower their prices because international buyers are choosing Canadian suppliers instead. A soybean farmer in Iowa may still produce the same crop, but without the same demand abroad, he's left selling at a loss. That reality ripples outward, affecting trucking companies, processing plants, and small towns that depend on agriculture to survive. Communities that once thrived on feeding the world are struggling to keep their local economies alive. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.